Well, hello, everybody, and
Hello.
welcome back to Working Moms.
Yes, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Right,
So
like
you look
I-
gorgeous today.
Thanks. I have visitors today, so I had to step it up.
Right through here.
I had to shampoo and set my hair.
I didn't. So I'm not going to lie. This is 2-day-old hair, so it's great.
It looks great. What's your secret? Maybe we could talk about that in a little bit.
Can talk about it. But today, we are out here at Arusha's. There is music in the background, so hopefully you guys will be able to hear us. We're going to do a summer fun edition, but because we're kind of going through some stuff, and we know that as working moms in general and just parents in general, we go through a lot of different stuff, and we want to help you with some other stuff. I think we're probably already in the middle of summer, but we're still going to talk about it next week.
Yeah, for sure. I think so.
But today,
We're going to switch things up all the time. That's how life is, though.
does this
You know
look
what I
like
mean?
coffee shop vibes? Like, I feel like I can't ever get it straight. I'm either super business, a super business, or super, like, leggings and a t-shirt. There's
I've
no
not
need
seen you
for
in
leggings and a t-shirt.
I think coffee shop vibes, depending on where you're going, if you're networking here, like trying to meet clients they might see you and strike up a conversation, like why do you have on that floral gown with your floral where are you going?
You do
Yeah.
look very professional.
Yeah. So I think we both have a different vibe.
How
Doesn't matter.
right? Well, but normally you wouldn't go out to coffee just like
I would
on a
never
day
go
off
out.
like this. So that's my point. Like I feel that there's so many different styles, and I can't ever seem to get them in between one.
Yeah.
That relax. I want to be able to go out. I want to whatever the topic is. I want to be able to go out and feel presentable and professional, but still kind of casual. And I feel like today's a good day. Yeah,
For sure. I think you totally nailed it.
hard for me to get that balance.
2-day-old hair that I can't tell.
But tell us about what we're going to be talking about today, because I feel like we're going from a really light conversation to like more of a heavy one. Yeah.
I think we're going to be talking today about divorce and how it affects children after divorce, and just kind of digging through the mud of that topic, because it's not a fun topic, and it's not fun to go through it, but unfortunately it affects a lot of people.
It does.
And we've both been affected by it, both as kids and adults.
Right. And I think that the statistics are like something like 50% of first-time marriages end up in divorce. And when you think about society as a whole, that is the statistic, is one. However, if we were thinking about a lifetime, you and I were kids, and then our kids are going to go through that. So if every generation has that opportunity of going through a divorce, it is definitely more than 50%, and it isn't unlikely that you're going to end up in a situation like this. And it's a really scary one. But how do we help our kids cope? Because at the end of the day, everything that we do as parents is to make a better life for our kids. And like you said, helping them cope with this is so important.
Yeah. I remember before I was divorced listening to Love radio, and a caller, she was a famous person, and I can't remember who it was, but she called in and was talking about the effects of divorce and how it'll creep its ugly head up when you least expect it.
Right.
And at the time, I was still married, but was a child of divorce, and I knew it to be true then, because it does, whether it's like a wedding, a baby shower, a kid's birthday, and both parents are there, or just pain from being a kid of divorce, whatever it is, it does creep its ugly head. And now being divorced, it certainly does, and it's hard,
It is. And I think we expect it whenever you are in a. So now I've been divorced and you've been divorced. And I think that thing is, once you are in that process, you know that one day it's going to come up, but you just don't know when.
Yeah.
And I think that today's topic is so relevant. Just yesterday, we kind of had a big blow up with both of our kids. It's so random. Like, each of them has their own issues. Of course, they come from two different parents, but they were both dealing with some very relevant issues, like their identity and how they feel like they were a part of creating the situation that had absolutely nothing to do with them. But in their tiny minds, that's all that they can wrap their head around.
Yeah.
And it's so sad.
Yeah.
So how do we get from that point to telling our kids that it wasn't, that it's so easy to say, well, you just tell them it's not their fault.
I think that kids they don't have the emotional maturity yet to like grasp it, and I don't think that they honestly ever will until they're adults,
Right.
and probably parents, because I know I didn't get it until I became a parent, and then I realized that both of my parents truly did the best that they could at the time, and my parents thankfully always made me feel loved and supported, so I didn't ever feel like otherwise. And I think that's the most important thing, is to let them know that like adult things are adult things, and they didn't have anything to do with the love that you have for your kids. And as long as you're showing up for your kids and supporting them and loving them and still being who you were pre-divorce is what really matters to them. But they're not going to fully get it, and maybe they sadly might not, but pray, let God, lead them and heal. Like I pray every day for healing for my family, for the boy's dad. Like I pray because it's a terrible thing that nobody wants to go through, and I just do. I give it to God and just pray that He would sort it all out and heal us all.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I heard in a sermon before, and they said, if you're praying for somebody, it's really hard to be talking about them or to be negative about them. And when you can't, and the goal should always be not to be negative about, their father, because while they may not be your spouse anymore, that they're always going to be the child's father. And unfortunately, there are those really, really ugly situations where there's a reason, and a very good reason for divorce. But unfortunately and fortunately, it's almost like a double-edged sword. Kids will learn that. They're going to get to know their parent better than anyone else. You don't have to tell them anything, because they're going to continue to be part of that person's life.
Yeah.
And they will learn, they're going to learn the character, they're going to learn, and essentially the reason why even the divorce happened. Unless it's something that was just totally out of somebody's control. And usually both parents are partially at fault somehow.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think that's exactly right. I think it takes two to make it go right, and it makes two to make it go wrong. And, some things don't always work out. And that's, all relationships too. Like I always tell my boys, I'm like, you don't want to leave anyone's cup empty. You should be filling each other's cup daily. And that's with your friends, that's with your brothers, that's with your grandparents, your spouse. It's not just a marital thing. And I think that's what's important to teach your children, is that like all relationships deserve equal parts, because one's going to fail if the other's not pouring.
And not 50-50. Like I hear this all the time. Like I hear marriage is 50-50, but it's not. A marriage should be 100 and 100.
For sure.
You should always be trying to outdo each other. Because if you're going to wait for the other person to beat you at 50%, there's going to be times there is no possibility of that happening. There's sometimes that I just don't have to fast that one. With hands.
I know the math one. What
I
is
know
that?
that's what
I haven't heard of that.
I think I'm getting hot. I don't have the bandwidth to come up with that 50%, but Texas Ford will.
Yeah, well,
the commercial just got really bad.
In all relationships too, at different times, someone might be pulling more weight.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? But it's like coming
time.
alongside that person. Like it literally has to ebb and flow, and there's going to be highs and lows. But like you have to. Someone can't just be pouring, and then you're left completely empty. Like if you don't fill up your car with gasoline, you're gonna break down.
Right. And that's something that we are trying to teach our kids now. This is what a relationship looks like. This is the way that things should go. And they're, your kids are going to see two whole different worlds. Once you're divorced, they're going to get to see your world, and they're going to see their other parents' world. And it's doing the best that you can, and it is almost like overcompensating, because that they're going to be over there. They're going to spend, whether it's 50% or 25% of the time, they're still learning something different. And obviously, if you guys are divorced, maybe there's a difference in that atmosphere. And like you said, I think prayer is so important.
Oh, it's just huge. Like if I did not have faith, I don't honestly, with so many things in my life, I don't know where I would be. And I rely solely on God every single day. I wake up, I start my day off with prayer. I pray for my kids. I pray for myself. And God shows up every single day.
Absolutely.
So
Um, Same here. And I think that and I notice whenever we let down in our prayer life, that things will tend to get ugly again.
well,
Because
that's
the world
exactly
takes over.
when I was saying earlier, you are left empty. When I am not spending time with God daily in His Word, my spirit literally feels quenched, and I will behave different. I am moody, short, and I'm like, it's because you're empty. You need to go back to the fuel and source of filling my spirit, filling me up so that I can overflow into my kids, into you, into all my relationships that I'm trying to navigate. So if we're empty, we can't. And so it's just like that with your spouse. If you're empty, you can't fill them up because you have nothing to give.
Well, we don't ever want to make our spouse, our center of hope. We don't want to make our spouse the reason for the whole world to go around. And I think that a lot of marriages do end up going wrong because we put our happiness on that one person rather than God. And, even though we said we're not going to talk about God every single day or, where it's like an overarching aspect of this podcast, that is really the reality of both of our lives. Because without that, we couldn't do so much of what we do every day. But centering your husband or any person, even your kids, as your whole world, as your happiness, that is bound to fail because at the end of the day, they're human just like we are, and they can't fulfill all the needs that we have as a person.
Well, because we're all human too,
Right.
so we're not meant to do that.
No,
You know what I mean?
not.
I mean, you're responsible for your own actions every single day. Whether you're a believer or you're not a believer, but you're still responsible for your own actions, and you cannot just be a taker. Like I heard a long time ago too, of energy suckers, and that's someone who's just sucking the energy out of you. And it's like I want to be like a burst of energy. Like I want to give you energy and not be like a drag.
Well, I think that with kids, the biggest thing we can do, so let's kind of transition from that point. Like, how should we tell our kids, Bucket? And I think one of the biggest ways is asking them how they're doing.
Yeah.
Kids, I mean, back in the day, we had this mentality, kids are what?
To be seen and not heard?
Yeah.
Or heard and not seen?
Yeah, sure.
Which one?
Be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
We didn't even ask them their opinion or what they kind of wanted. And I think we're in a different culture, a different place that we have become a lot more aware of the emotional and the psychological aspects of divorce. And I think one of those things is hearing what they have to say.
Yeah. For sure. I think it is important to check in with them and how are you doing? Do you need anything from me? Do you want to talk about anything? And honestly, not forcing them to. Leaving it an open door. If you have something you would like to say and get off your chest, let's talk about it. I'm here for you. This is a space for you.
Absolutely.
But also not trying to, force an issue either, because I think kids will, my children will speak up when they want to, and they're pretty vocal.
Well, I think you've made them feel comfortable. And I think that that's the biggest difference. With my girls, I don't think that I have the mental knowledge or experience to ask them how all of those questions. And I think they bottled up a lot of things, and now as they're older, a lot of those things are coming up, and they do consistently and constantly. And it's going to be a lifetime of healing, right? But those are a lot of things that I'm learning. So with our younger kids, that is one of the things that we do quite often. And we can see one of our kids bottle things up, and then kind of it all pops up like a, soda, where our other child, they'll talk about how they're feeling. They'll tell you, how they're feeling in their identity, and they'll talk about, more of an open conversation. But at the end of the day, they both feel comfortable enough, whether it's one way or another. We're learning and walking them through the process of actually opening up about how they feel. It's so important.
Yeah, and I would say too, because some of your youngest, your stepson is pretty young, and I would say like I can tell if someone's behavior kind of changes in the house,
And it
you're
does,
like,
yeah.
okay, what's going on? You know, let's talk. Or sometimes spending one-on-one time with them too is very important because they do start to act out. I think that kids. Oh,
I got it.
it's important to check in and see, like, you know, what's bothering you, you know?
And I think that one-on-one, like you said, is super important. We think that, our kids, they've been used to being alone with us since they were little. So we make very intentional time to spend one-on-one with each of our kids. It's not that we don't love each other's kids. It's that this is what has been their constant for the last 10 or 11 and 12 years. So we want to continue something that is important to them. So that one-on-one is really, really important.
Well, and your situation currently is different than mine because you are remarried. You just merged families.
Right.
That has to be challenging for the kids because, like you said, they are used to just being with dad or just with mom, and now they're both together, where that has to be harder. And so
it is. And that's one aspect for sure, where they're having to share. We've been dating, or we dated for 3 years, so it wasn't new for them. Yeah. We spent a lot of time together. I think we fit in like 10 years into a 3-year time span. So they were well acquainted, and we haven't really had big issues with them in that perspective. But them merging and realizing that there isn't going to be an opportunity for their mom and dad to be a unit anymore. And that's really the hard part, right? It's that realization that this is our new family, right? And there isn't ever going to be what it used to be. Right. So I think that's been the hardest thing to deal with. And as they get older, they're wrestling with, why did this happen? Could that possibly happen? And even though they don't say that, it's in the back of their head. If one marriage didn't work, what makes it seem like this one will? I think it's that instability.
Like they're feeling like a little vulnerable and scared of like security.
Yeah. And I think that's a really fair assumption, because the most important thing in a human psyche is what?
Security.
Security, exactly. It's like we've practiced our podcast.
Yeah, we did. We've been drumming up this for 45 years.
You mean 45 a minute? No. It's such an important topic, and it's a scary one, which you don't want to open up and tell everybody your business, but it's so relevant. Everybody is going through it.
Well, and I think that we want to be honest. We don't want to like have, a podcast where we're sugarcoating how reality is for us.
That we're so we're so amazing.
We are telling it in life, because the truth of the matter is that we fail just every single day. We've got lots of failures, and we will have many more, and that's okay.
Absolutely. So with that being said, like, I think for me, my mom win this week was my daughter opening up. And just to see her vulnerability, she was actually, she was questioning her identity. Like, who am I like? What am I going to be like as I get older? And that was huge to hear her, because, one of the things that I don't ever want is for her to bottle those things up. So I feel that I didn't do a great job with my older girls in that perspective. So to have her open up that way was a huge moment for me.
Yeah, and I would tell her, like, who you are is who God created you to be, not me and your dad, because that's the truth. Like, you can have dreams of your purpose, but it is who God created her to be, and she's going to be different than both of you. And that's obviously have her own individuality, if you can't hear me. But anyway, that's a big win. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
I think that my mom win in the last week was kind of similar. I had like a big talk with one of my boys, and I felt like we heard each other, and that was really great because, we are different and
not hurt.
Yeah, heard me, and I
Yeah.
heard him. And that's how you grow with relationships and develop trust. You know, by like, let's talk it out. So
Yeah. That's all we can do with the big.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and then, so yeah, that's good. Do you want to do a beauty? Do you have a beauty tip today?
A beauty tip for today.
So,
Well, I mean, I don't know if this really counts, but like yesterday morning, I had a driver's license renewal appointment in the morning.
did you stick your neck out?
No,
Oh, I do that. I do it
No.
every time. I go like this.
no, I
That's
didn't.
that beauty tip.
But beauty tip is to stick your neck out and look like you're about to like have a stroke.
It doesn't matter. The camera can't see it when your face forward.
But anyways, I had that at 9:30 in the morning, so I had to get full face, full ready, and then I had a massage and cupping appointment after, and then my face is smashed into a pillow, and then I had lunch with friends after, and I was like, so now I have my I just looked crazy. But my beauty hack was just go back home, kind of straighten out your lashes, throw on a touch up a little bit, and get to lunch. And so that was
Look fresh.
yeah.
So I have a beauty
I
tip.
don't know that that's a hack, but that was
beauty
my life
tip,
yesterday.
beauty hack,
Yeah.
whatever. So I wanted to change foundation, and as a matter of fact, I am wearing NARS light radiation
Light radiation.
radiance
It was
light radiance foundation, and I love it. I do. So I really like it, and I think it looks really great.
Did
It
you put it
matches
on
my
your
skin.
desk?
Yeah. No.
You did.
No, it is like incredible. You can't
lying,
see any.
everyone.
I
She
put it
is
up to.
lying.
I put it up to here, but you can see there is no mix match. So if you have a yellow undertone, it's amazing. It's incredible.
I do. From
But-
my, Latina.
You got.
Sure.
You have to. Yeah.
I love that because I struggle with finding a foundation because sometimes I feel like
Yeah.
my face looks different than my neck color and like I don't know. I think finding makeup as we get older is challenging.
Yeah. Well, this one is fantastic, but that is one. If you love it, NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. I love it.
Yes.
However, the tip is, if you are not sure what foundation color you need, or if it's even going to work for your skin, I've known about this forever, but I never do it. And I went to Ulta and I got samples, or Sephora, one of the two. So you can get a Sephora, and I've got samples of 2 different mascaras and 2 different eye creams. Now I'm gonna go back and buy both of them that I like, but I didn't have to spend money. I hate returning things, so I end up with a ton of makeup.
Yeah.
And I'll end up with a ton of makeup that I'm not gonna use.
Yeah.
And it's hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I don't. There's some things I'm so cheap on, but I can't be cheap on makeup. It's because of my skin being so sensitive. So there you go.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Yes, and we will see you next week.
Hello, Marissa.
Hello again. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
you for coming back.
Yes.
Or if you're only watching the real estate moment, then I guess let's get into this because we don't want to make it too long. But it is summer, and since we touched on sellers last week, what are we going to talk about today?
Buyers.
Buyers.
Buying. Correct?
Correct.
So, what do you think about buyers? What tips do you have for buyers that are looking for a home?
So I think being a buyer in this market, you're in a very good place. Let's start there. I think unfortunately for a lot of the sellers, we are certainly in a buyer's market, even though they tell you there's a lot of shortage. It's just going to depend on where you live and what kind of home you're looking for. If you're looking for any home over, $650,000, there's not going to be as many homes up for sale. But the reality, at least in a hyper local way, our communities, our areas in the Central Texas, Austin, Georgetown, Belton Temple area, we have a ton of inventory.
Yeah.
Like a ton of inventory for buyers, which is not great for sellers because there's a lot of options. And also for builders, like it could be a little bit hurtful for you guys.
Oh, for sure. I feel like in the 6 years I've been doing this, that there's more new build inventory sitting plus resale sitting, that it's like buyers have so many choices right now that like it is a buyer's market. However, it's not completely a buyer's market to where you can make all these demands.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you do have some wiggle room, and then you just have so many choices. So what advice do you have for people that maybe you're out taking them to X amount of homes, like maybe to give buyers some like pointers on how to narrow their search before they even go out looking, so you're not out wasting your time and everyone else's time?
That's true. That's a good point. So I think probably from a real estate professional, what I would say is for a buyer is know where you want to live.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest, most important aspect. There's so many things to take into consideration that a lot of buyers do not even consider until they move into a house, and then they're stuck. They're stuck there for whatever X amount of time that they have to stay until their house increases in equity and they can sell and move. So there's a couple of things to take into consideration when you're thinking about buying. And one, what community do you want to live in? That goes based on the school system. It goes based with your lifestyle. Are you a really active person where you want to be by the lake, or you want to be by the city? Do you enjoy having jogging trails or walking trails, or do you need a pool? All of those things are so super important that you have to know really where you want to be. Now, if you're brand new to the area, you still know what your desires are. You don't have to know the neighborhood in order to know where you want the kind of lifestyle that you want. If you're looking for a specific school system, that's one thing. But if you're brand new, you're probably not even going to know what the best school systems are. So if you are brand new to the area, ask your realtor, one, for the school grading system. I'm going to tell you, it's not super accurate. They're graded between students that are the best students to the students that are the worst, and most of them land somewhere in the middle. There's no, unless you're going to a private school, it's really hard to find the one school that you think really is an outstanding school based on the grading system. One child that has a 20 percentile grade is going to knock everybody off that is in a 90 percentile grade. The lifestyle is a really, really big one. There's some people that want to live by the city. There's some people that want to be rural. If you're older, or if you have medical needs, and that's something that's important to you, you need to consider that. That is probably 100% one of the most important aspects. My in-laws are considering moving here. The hospitals, their cardiologists, their neurologists, all of those things are probably at the very top of their list of where to live. It needs to be accessible, and it needs to be somewhere that they can go without having to go in through, let's say, like the most busiest part of town, and if it is where it needs to be, take that into account if that is your need. If your kids are in daycare, is there a good daycare nearby? I mean, we just talked about daycare, so don't base your home necessarily around that unless you know you're only going to be here for a year or two. You're probably not going to be in the daycare system for more than a couple of years. So know that. That is probably tip number one.
I think too, sometimes it's like you move somewhere and then you're driving 15 minutes to the grocery store or to go grab something to eat. There's no choices around you, and
Is that important on you?
It is to me, because I like to eat, and I
love to eat. So
I want choices.
Absolutely.
I don't want just one.
Before, I lived in an area where we were 5 minutes away from everything. I thought that was the dumbest reason to buy a house, because I was used to driving 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes to go somewhere. But then I moved somewhere where all the restaurants were 5 minutes, and now it is so important. Where we live now, it's so amazing. There's a plaza, there's a spa, there's a HEB, like 5 minutes from my house, and it's incredible. Again, before I had that, and if you've never had that, and that's not something that is important to you, it's not a big deal. But if you've experienced that, ask. Because necessarily a realtor is not going to think that's probably priority, honestly. Well, I never thought it was.
And maybe it isn't, but I came from a city where everything was right there. And so moving here, I'm like, oh my gosh, it takes me forever to get anywhere.
And
I don't have anything near me. And so, I don't know that would completely steer me, but some people it is important. And
Absolutely.
I think it is a treat to be in the center of I can get here and there, and it's convenient for busy lives.
Absolutely.
Saves a lot of time.
So as a working mom, definitely look for a place.
Yeah.
You know, and that is the reality, is that probably a lot of the high earners or double income households want to live in a place like that that is centrally located, because it does make their life a little
Yeah.
bit more convenient. Again,
sure.
I thought that was not a smart thing to do, but I didn't know it.
Yeah.
Once I was a part of now that I am a part of that group, it is an important aspect to me. A third one I would say is know what you want in your house, right? Don't compromise right away. And when I mean don't compromise, if you want a bathtub, get a bathtub with your house. If that is an important ritual or process you go through every day, get the bathtub.
Yeah, and keep in mind, you're not. I always tell people get a wants and a needs list together, like your non-negotiables, because unless you have an endless budget, you're never going to find every single thing on your list. So
Absolutely.
what are the most important? Is it a bathtub? Is it your yard? Is it your family room, the kitchen?
Yeah.
Like definitely have non-negotiables, but be flexible, because
Absolutely.
it's going to be buying a home is so hard. You know,
is.
it is a huge investment. It's a huge life change. And you don't want to compromise and then hate your
Right.
home, but however, you've got to be realistic.
Yeah, and keep your price point in mind with all that stuff. You know, and it's funny because I've sold homes that are $150,000, and I've sold homes at $1 million. And the thing is, as your budget increases, so does your needs and desires,
Yeah.
and the list just gets longer. So you think that because you have $1 million to spend, that your budget is going to start decreasing, or not, I'm sorry, because your budget has gotten larger, that you're going to find everything you're looking for in one, but that's not either a reality either. So like you said, make a list of the things that you must have, but be mindful that you may have to make a change on your own, especially when you get to these higher price points.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer about need. It's not that you need 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. It's that you want 5 bedrooms, a study, and a formal dining room. You want a pool, or you want, custom blinds. And a house probably won't have all of that. So keeping your budget and that in mind. No, on the other side of the spectrum, if you're buying a $150,000 home, you need to keep in mind that you're probably already buying at the top of your budget. I have never, not never, but rarely do I see couples or anyone buy a home where it's lower than what they can afford, especially at 150,000. People are trying to do the best they can for their
Right.
family. So they're spending at the top of their budget. And what that means is that when you get that first mortgage, that's where most of your money is going to go. So the idea that once you buy this house, you're going to remodel it, or you're going to fix the roof, or you're going to fix the plumbing, or you're going to fix the electrical, that usually goes out the window. Because right now you're thinking, I don't have a house, I'll have a payment, and I can do this on the side.
Yeah.
But when reality sets in and you have a payment you didn't have before, it's really hard to get to all those repairs. And the reality is that most people never get, so buy as much as you can afford, but also buy what is livable and that you're not thinking about doing a remodel right away.
Right. Yeah, unless you are like buying a flip or something like that,
And that's a
But if
totally
it is
different
your home-
situation. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Don't buy over your head. There's nothing worse than being married to your home and now all the fun stuff's out the window. Now you've got stress. You want it to be a happy, exciting venture, and like
Absolute.
to keep, your family safe and things like that, and not be strapped to the house.
And I think my last tip for myself, I would say, love the place you're buying. Like, feel like if you need to feel that excitement about coming home every day after work, because this is the place this is your sanctuary, this is your safety place, this is your peace, this is where you're going to recenter. And if you're not excited about coming home every day, that's not the place for you. I tell people that all the time. If you can't see yourself excited about coming home to the one place that should be your space, that's not the right place.
Yeah. I think so too. And I think that, like, homes speak to you. Like when you walk in a home, you get a certain feeling of like, I can start visualizing my kids eating here at the table or my dog out in the backyard or things like that. And if you walk in and it feels cold and like, listen to your gut.
And that is why sellers, you want to stage your house even a little bit to make it feel more like home. Give buyers an opportunity to envision themselves in that, even if it's as simple as stools on the, island counter. That makes a difference.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any questions, we are always here for you guys. And feel free to reach out to us. You guys have all of our information. And we'll see you again
Next week.
next week.
And we will have a guest next week.
Do you know what? Yeah. That was
Another
our
one.
last gift was incredible.
She was amazing.
Yeah.
I loved her. Did you guys have any questions for Mary Sue?
Well, I can tell you that I've gotten a few calls about Miss Mary Sue and all of her extensive knowledge. So actually, you may want to say we were considering having her as a regular.
Yeah, be back.
Yeah, be back.
We'll probably, a lot of our guests are going to be amazing. And so they will
I'm super
probably,
excited.
they all have,
Yeah.
everybody has so much knowledge to share. But yes, we will have a guest next week. She is a real estate professional, plus she owns some gyms, a winery, a farm. She has a lot to talk about.
Well, and the best part of us having guests is that in our website, you guys are going to find every single one of their bios. You guys are going to be able to see their business, their experience level, and where they come from. So if you guys have any questions, go see them at their business. If you have questions, Ms. Mary Sue is now retired, so they don't own the daycares anymore. But you can't take away 60 years worth of knowledge.
For sure.
And she's so eager to share that. So we are going to be bringing information and tips on child development throughout our podcast. So if you have a question for her, that is kind of going to go through us, that way we're not overwhelming her. She's supposed to be retired, but she is going to be back.
Yep.
All
Well,
right.
we'll see you next week.
See you guys next week.